Hey, hey, hey! Welcome to my cozy corner of the internet. This is Nephilim VA bringing you the 5th chapter of Inheritance, written by A is for Amy 71 on AO3. As I said in the last video, I hate that counselor and I hope he doesn't show up in this chapter. I want to protect little Izuku with my life. His quirks are so cute and he's just so sweet. This fanfiction is for mature audiences with canon-typical violence and a trigger warning for major character death. If that isn't your style, then I recommend Shades of Green, which is written by Maybe It's Friendly on AO3. It can be found on my channel! Canon Divergence is the name of the game and indulges the what-ifs of Midoriya Izuku having a quirk. With that being said, the chapter summary is as followed. Izuku gets a new babysitter, meets a man with a quirk kind of like his, and meets Kacchan again. Now I implore you to sit back and relax whilst I read to you. Chapter 5. 2 weeks before Tanaka was due to leave for the United States, Izuku's dad brought home a young woman to meet him. She was a university student, he said, that was studying to become a teacher. Izuku thought she was pretty, and that she had a nice smile, but there was something about her he wasn't quite sure of. He hid behind his father's legs when they were introduced and didn't want to talk to her. Izuku's dad, to his credit, did not try to force the encounter. He apologized to the young woman, but explained that he needed someone in the position that Izuku felt extremely comfortable with, and that he was sorry he had wasted her time. The young woman had stared at Izuku for a few moments longer than seemed polite before she simply turned around and left without another word. 2 other candidates were also rejected by Izuku, and his dad finally asked him if he was just turning them down because he didn't want Tanaka to leave.
I don't want him to leave, but I know he's gonna,
Izuku said solemnly.
But those other people felt bad. I didn't like them. They looked nice, but they weren't.
His dad had lifted an eyebrow at him, but simply ruffled his hair and said, "Okay." The week before Tanaka had to leave, Izuku's dad brought home one more candidate. She was different from the others, and Izuku liked her at once. She was short and plump, with grey strands in very dark purple hair cut short to frame her face. Everything about her seemed to be what Izuku imagined a grandmother would be like. He came out from behind his father's legs and offered her a shy smile.
"Pleased to meet you," he said politely. "I'm Midoriya Izuku."
She smiled at him with slightly crooked teeth, and her eyes crinkled in the corners. He liked her immediately.
"Do you like All Might?"
he asked her, giving her the ultimate test of suitability. "Oh my, yes," she said. "He's so big and handsome." She gave him a wink and Izuku's dad chuckled.
"I like her,"
Izuku decided, looking up at his dad. That was how Granny Ito came to be in charge of taking care of Izuku and Hisashi when Tanaka left to continue his education abroad. Izuku missed Tanaka, but Granny Ito was really nice to have around. She picked him up from school each day, Dad's search for care homes nearby had turned up nothing, and walked with him, listening intently to his chatter. She baked special treats, her meals were really yummy, and she had a quirk that let her grow really nice houseplants. She read to him a lot, and helped him learn how to. As far as he was concerned, she could stay forever. A week after Granny Ito began working for the Midoriyas, she told Izuku that they were going to go on a field trip. She picked him up from school and they took a train. He kneeled on the bench seat and watched as the scenery flew by, and he kept up a stream of chatter about everything he saw. He recognized 1 or 2 hero agencies by their signs and exclaimed excitedly. She smiled at him but seemed nervous and uncomfortable.
"What's wrong, Granny Ito? If you don't want to take me anywhere, you don't have to,"
Izuku told her, noticing she was twisting her hands in her lap. No, she said with a strained smile. Don't worry, Izuku. Everything is going to be fine. We're going to see something you'll really like. Izuku tried to coax their destination out of her, making guesses like the zoo or a candy store, but she simply smiled. You'll see. They got off the train about 40 minutes after they got on, and walked through an area with some tall buildings. When they got to where Granny Ito wanted to go, Izuku looked at the building with a sense of disappointment. The building was utterly plain with no real distinguishing features. She rang a doorbell and there was a buzzer before the door clicked and she pulled it open, ushering a hesitant Izuku into the dim interior. Who's that? A voice demanded. Izuku looked over to where the voice had come from, a scrawny boy with white, messy hair, torn jeans, and a wrinkly t-shirt. He didn't look very old, maybe just shy of going to middle school, but he was pale and sickly looking. He also didn't look happy to see them. Tomura, a man's voice said from the doorway that the boy was standing in. You haven't finished the assignment I gave you. Yes, sensei, the boy said in a surly tone. He glared at Granny Ito and Izuku for a moment longer before turning on his heel and slouching out of sight. A moment later, a tall man appeared who looked vaguely familiar to Izuku, but he couldn't think of why. Please forgive my student, the man said cordially. He doesn't deal well with strangers. Izuku wasn't sure what was going on, and held Granny Ito's hand in his own, even though he was getting to be a little old for such things. Ito-san, thank you for bringing Midoriya-kun to visit me. You can go and wait in the lounge if you would. Our little meeting shouldn't take too long, and then the two of you can be on your way. Granny Ito gently released Izuku's hand and shooed him towards the man. Go on, dear. Everything will be just fine. Izuku's reluctance melted away at her words, and he walked over to where the man was waiting. Follow me. There's someone I want you to meet with, the man told him, leading him down a hallway. Izuku glanced into the room that the boy had been in, and saw he was bent over a large desk, writing something. The older boy must have sensed that he was being watched, because he looked up from his work and stared at Izuku until Izuku moved past, following the man.
"Who are you?"
Izuku finally asked the man as he opened a door and led him into a room that looked like a doctor's exam room. My name is Shigaraki, he answered, patting the exam table for Izuku to climb onto. I brought you here so Dr. Tsubasa can run a few tests on you. You remember him, don't you?
Uh-huh,
Izuku said, kicking his legs as they dangled off the edge of the table.
Why didn't we go see him at the hospital like last time?
It's dangerous for you to go to a hospital because of your quirk, isn't it? Shigaraki-san said. That made sense. Dr. Sabasa came into the room just a moment later, wearing a lab coat and carrying a small metal tray, a tray that Izuku recognized.
"You're gonna poke me with a needle?"
Izuku said accusingly. "You won't even feel it," Shigaraki-san told him. "I'll hold your hand the whole time." Izuku put his hand into Shigaraki's, and then, the next thing he knew, he blinked and it was over. He wasn't sitting anymore, but laying on the exam table and sat up in confusion. "All done. Let's get you back to Ito-san," Shigaraki said, lifting him off the table and setting him on his feet.
"Did he poke me with a needle?"
"Yes. He needed a little more of your blood to run some tests to do some research. Your quirk is very, very interesting to me and him. Your blood might be able to help us figure out what makes you so special." He led Izuku back to the front door area. The boy he called Tomura earlier was no longer in the room off the hall. Granny Ito heard them coming and stood to meet them. She was twisting her fingers and looked anxious.
"How are you? Are you okay, Izuku?"
she asked worriedly, looking the boy over with a critical eye. Izuku nodded easily and took her hand.
"You said it wouldn't take very long," she said to Shigaraki-san. "It's been an hour."
"We needed it to be thorough," he said. "He won't remember any of this in 5 minutes' time, so be sure to take him away and spend some time somewhere interesting before taking him home. We wouldn't want to have the missing time damage his psyche, would we?" Izuku had no idea what they were talking about.
"Still,"
she said with a sniff. "The trust quirk I gave you will smooth things over. They will suspect nothing. Keep doing as I say, and your family and their restaurant will be fine."
"I thought your quirk was a green thumb,"
Izuku said, commenting on the only thing he even sort of followed.
"It is," she told him, tugging him toward the door. "The one I was born with, anyway."
She guided him out into the afternoon sunshine and helped him fasten the zipper on his jacket. They walked down the street to a busier road and turned toward a different station than the one they arrived at.
"Now we've got that out the way, I can show you what we came all the way out here to see," Granny Ito told him.
Izuku was puzzled for a moment about what she meant by "got that out of the way," but decided she must mean the long train ride to get there. He didn't question how they had gotten so far from the station or why they were headed back in that direction. Granny Ito was nice and always took really good care of him. As they neared the station, Granny Ito pointed upward, and Izuku looked to see what she was showing him. There, right in front of a big store, was a humongous All Might statue. The fiberglass figure was almost as tall as the roof of the building it was standing in front of. Izuku gasped and tugged at Granny's hand, trying to get her to walk faster so that he could see it up close. There were people everywhere taking pictures in front of the giant All Might, and Izuku was in awe of how the hero seemed to be smiling at the whole town from up there.
"This is so cool!"
Izuku said enthusiastically.
"That's not all,"
Granny told him with a smile, enjoying his reaction. She turned him gently by the shoulders to see the store behind the statue was full of hero merchandise. Izuku's eyes turned to saucers as he stared.
"Can we go in? Can we?"
"Of course we can," she laughed. "I told your father I was bringing you to see this, and he gave me some money so you could pick out something small as a souvenir." Izuku was practically vibrating with joy about this, but waited patiently and held Granny's hand when she told him to. The store had only recently opened and was quite crowded with people of all ages. All Might was the main hero on display, but there were also items for Endeavor, Crimson Riot, No Nonsense, and all other top-tier heroes. Izuku was in heaven. He took his time looking at everything in his price range, and finally settled on a poster for his bedroom wall. While they paid for it, he was also allowed to enter a drawing for a limited edition All Might snow globe that would be coming out in 3 months' time for the Christmas season. Granny Ito bought him a package of All Might-shaped cheese crackers to eat before they got back on the train and headed home. As far as Izuku was concerned, it had been a great day. Granny Ito took Izuku on field trips to that statue about once a month after that. He had quite a growing collection of All Might posters and trading cards. By the time Izuku started first grade, it seemed like Granny Ito had always been with them. She never missed a day of picking him up from kindergarten and always made yummy meals and took him on little adventures a lot. First grade was more formal than his old school, and Izuku had a longer school day once he started attending. On his first day, he chafed a bit at his new uniform, missing the loose-fitting shirt and shorts from his old school when he was forced to wear navy shorts and a button-up shirt and a navy vest. His shoes were shiny, new black leather, stiff and hard to walk in compared to his sneakers. He was glad when he got to change into his indoor shoes. His dad walked him to the classroom for the first time and greeted the teacher. They had met her before because of the nature of Izuku's quirk and the subsequent quirks as a result. She seemed a little uneasy about it, but was friendly enough. Izuku liked the look of his new classroom. Each student had a desk with a little nook on the side for their school bags, and there was a bright carpet in the corner with different coloured polka dots all over it in the back of the room. There were brightly coloured decorations hanging on the walls along with hiragana and katakana charts, the English alphabet and number charts. Izuku was proud that he could already count to 50, although sometimes he forgot 37 and 38. There were other children finding their seats or saying goodbye to their parents when Izuku spotted 3 familiar faces.
Dad! It's Auntie and Uncle and Kacchan!
Izuku said excitedly, tugging on his dad's sleeve. So it is! His dad smiled down at him. The teacher moved on to speak with other parents and students, and Izuku went over to greet the Bakugo family. Izuku-kun, Auntie said with a huge smile. She crouched down to ruffle his hair and exclaimed over how much he'd grown since the last time she saw him. Uncle shook hands with his dad, and Kacchan just stared sullenly. What's Deku doing here? Kacchan demanded of no one in particular. His mother flicked his ear and scowled at him.
Hi, Kacchan,
Izuku said timidly, trying to be friendly. Tch, was Kacchan's response. The teacher got everyone's attention at that point and thanked them all for coming, then gently escorted the parents out of the door so they could begin their school day. Izuku found his desk and climbed into the seat, looking at that stack of supplies sitting on top, waiting for him. There was a yellow sun hat on the top of the pile, and under that, folders, a notebook, crayons and markers and pencils and paper. Izuku felt excited about all of the things he would be doing with each item, and listened to the teacher and her aide with rapt attention. They spent their morning getting to know each other and singing songs and learning their way around the classroom. Soon they sat on the colourful carpet with each boy or girl on one of the polka dots, facing the teacher who was sat in a chair and read them a story about a boy that fell into a koi pond and had an adventure with the fish.
How many of you think you could hold your breath for that long?
the teacher asked the class. Hands shot up in the air in excitement. Let's see who can hold their breath for the longest. Ready? Go! 20 sets of chubby cheeks puffed out as everyone sucked in a breath and held it. Izuku won the game because as soon as he held his breath, he turned transparent and all the other kids gasped and giggled and pointed. Izuku started to laugh with them, but then Kacchan decided to speak out. That's a stupid quirk! Some kids gasped. One girl said he was mean. Several scolded him for saying a bad word. Izuku just sat there and looked at the navy blue stripes on his white socks, feeling sad that Kacchan was still mad at him since the last time they'd seen each other. One of the girls that Izuku thought was called Emery patted his arm in sympathy and whispered,
"He's dumb. Your quirk is cool."
Izuku smiled shyly at her and felt better. At lunchtime, they all learned how to push their desks together to turn them into tables. Kacchan was at the end of Izuku's table, and Izuku was filled with dread about what he might say to the other children about him. Izuku's dad had told him not to advertise the fact that he had multiple quirks, though he didn't have to keep it a strict secret either. They already knew about the see-through one, so Izuku kept quiet about having more than that. Unfortunately, while they were eating their lunch, the talk turned to quirks. Emery-chan said that she could stretch her arms almost a meter to reach stuff up high. Izuku thought that quirk was really useful. Michi-kun said he could turn his hands into flippers like a seal. Aiko could scream loud enough to break glass, and Goro could make his hair change color by shaking his head really fast. I got the best quirk out of everyone, Kacchan bragged. The sweat on my hands can explode. He looked at the other kids at their table as if waiting for them to be impressed, but that didn't quite happen.
Ew!
Emery-chan said, wrinkling her nose. What are you talking about? Kacchan demanded angrily. Explosions are cool. I'm gonna be the greatest hero in the world when I grow up.
You could never be as good as All Might,
Michi-kun told him airily. Will too, Kacchan said back heatedly.
I'm gonna be a hero someday too,
Izuku announced.
I don't know,
Aiko-chan said skeptically.
Turning see-through isn't very good for heroes.
Like I said, Kacchan said smugly, it's a stupid quirk. All his quirks are lame.
All his quirks?
Emery-chan asked.
How many do you have, Izu-chan?
Izuku opened his mouth to answer, but Kacchan beat him to it. He's got 4 'cause he's a freak. All the kids around the room turned to stare because Kacchan's voice was so loud.
Nobody has 4 quirks,
one of the kids from the next table said. Deku does, Kacchan insisted, because he steals them from dead people. Izuku's eyes widened. He didn't know how Kacchan knew about how he got his new quirks.
What?
Several kids asked. The teacher tried to get the situation under control, but it was too late. Chatter swept across the classroom while kids all tried to ask Izuku about it at once. Go ahead, Deku, tell him, Kacchan said with satisfaction. Boys and girls, the teacher said, clapping her hands to get their attention, that's enough. We'll talk more about this after lunch. Until then, focus on eating and being kind to each other. Izuku sighed and put down his chopsticks. He wasn't hungry anymore.
Do you really have 4 quirks?
Emery-chan asked him in a whisper voice.
7.
Izuku told her miserably in an even quieter whisper.
That's so cool! You're so lucky!
She whispered excitedly. Izuku looked at her with amazement and felt some of the pressure in his chest dissipate. After lunch, they all did their part to clean up and put the classroom back the way it had been. When they were finished, the teacher stood in front of the class. Normally this would be when we go outside for recess, but I think that we should have a talk as a class first. Everyone sat back on the polka dot carpet and the teacher called Deku up to stand up in front of everyone. Our friend Izuku-kun has a very special quirk, she told them. It's a quirk that gives him other quirks. He steals them from dead people, Kacchan said with a nod.
I do not!
Izuku fired back hotly.
It's not stealing!
The other kids were unusually silent during this exchange, waiting to see what would happen. Izuku-kun, the teacher said kindly, putting a hand on his shoulder. When you came to meet me the other day, you did a very good job of explaining how your quirk works. Why don't you tell them about it, the same way you told me? Izuku felt nervous with all those eyes on him, but swallowed and told them about how his dad had told him to think of it like collecting shells. Most of the kids looked confused, but accepting. Several hands shot into the air to ask questions.
How many quirks do you got?
The little boy whose name Izuku couldn't remember asked.
7,
Izuku said uncertainly.
Whoa!
Many of the kids murmured in awe. Kacchan looked as if someone had slapped him in the face.
Cool! Lucky! What are they?
Aiko-chan asked.
The collecting one, I can turn see-through, I can tell what people want to eat, I can make some animals' hair grow, I can change plastic stuff a different color, and I got really good balance and agility,
Izuku said, counting on his fingers.
Oh, and I got my mom's quirk that lets me pull small things to me.
Agility, the teacher corrected with a smile. There was a familiar t sound, and Izuku knew it was Kacchan, though he didn't say anything more, at least not yet. When they were finally released to go outside and play, Izuku had a group of other kids around him, curious to know more about how his quirk worked, and to tell him about their own. He was just as interested in their quirks as they were in his. He asked a lot of questions about theirs and wished he knew how to write better, so he could put them in his notebook. Tanaka used to help him before. Maybe Granny Ito could help him this time. They were all trying to organize a game of tag when Kacchan made an appearance. The teacher had asked him to stay inside for a minute more for a talk, and started trying to cause trouble. You better watch out or Deku will steal your quirk next, he told them with a leer.
Who's Deku?
One of them asked. It's that freak, he said, pointing to Izuku. It means useless.
That's mean. You're mean,
one of the other kids accused.
I don't want my quirk stolen,
said one of the girls, sounding scared.
I can't just take quirks,
Izuku said worriedly.
And I wouldn't anyway. Yeah, you'd have to die first,
Emery said with her hands on her hips.
And you're a kid. You're not gonna die for a long, long time.
Many of the kids looked unsure about everything, but most were on Izuku's side. "Come on, let's go play," a boy called Hoshihiku said, breaking the awkwardness. "Bet you can't run as fast as me." The rest of the day was better, and Izuku had made the beginnings of some friendships with classmates, even if Kacchan wasn't among them. Granny Ito was waiting for him when he was released at the end of class, which was later than his old school let out. She listened to his account of his day and asked lots of questions as they went home. He tried to stay up to tell his dad all about it when he got home from work, but he was worn out from his long first day and fell asleep long before his father arrived. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate all the support you've given me. Happy solstice! Or at least, when I'm recording this outro, it's still the solstice. Anyway. Okay, I was wrong. That counselor guy was in the chapter. I still hate him and he should leave Granny Ito alone. All credits go to the original creator of this fanfiction. A is for Amy, 71 on AO3. I would highly appreciate it if you gave this video a like and you subscribe to the channel and you hit the notification bell to be notified of when I next upload. There is no pressure to do so though. Thank you for visiting my cozy corner of the internet. Keep growing my sunflowers. Mwah!